what do comedians want? They want you to die of a heart attack so they can drag your smoking carcass off the stage and they can get your remaining 3 minutes.
Next comic, give it loud for everybody for Anthony Eugenio. We're gonna have the next comic. Very funny. Wayne Russell, everybody.
Welcome to the Open Mic Pain with Anthony and Wayne podcast.
Hello everyone, and I'm going to set a scene for you. We're in dark New York City. Wayne's dead body is in an alleyway, filled with white fluid. Two detectives walk up. The first one says to the next, "Oh my God, who could have done that?" The other detective looks at him and says, "That wasn't a man. That's welcome." And welcome to an Open Mic Pain with Anthony and Wayne. I'm Anthony Eugenio here with my co-host Wayne Russell. How you doing, buddy?
Oh my God, that was the worst one.
I've been thinking about that for weeks.
He texted me this morning. He's like, "I have a really good idea for a beginning," and
Yeah.
I was so excited for it. And I might
Did I
just
let
go
you
back.
down?
I think I'm done.
Well, I've been thinking about that for weeks. But today is a very special, it's our 50th episode. So we wanted to bring someone in to school us on what we need to know about what we're fucking up every week here on this podcast. Because we got someone that's been in the game since 1983, founder of the Maxwell Method of Comedy, and just all around great guy. We got Dobie Maxwell. How you doing, buddy?
Gentlemen, I thank you for having me on. I wish I would have had an outlet like this when I was starting out because I always say the best carpenter to learn from's got the least amount of fingers, man. He'll saw them off and it's like, oh my God, what did you do wrong? I've sawed off toes, fingers, appendages, earlobes, all that stuff. So if you got new comedians watching, I'm the one that helps you.
I like that.
Because nobody talked to me. I just would have killed if anybody would have even talked to me when I started out, and nobody did. And I had to do everything, with the information that I had, and I totally blew up in my face. Oh, that doesn't work, so try it. So kudos to you guys for even reaching out. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, definitely. It's funny. I've read some things that you've written online, and one of the things you wrote was exactly what you just said, that you had nobody to help you, kind of guide you, and that's why we started this, because we didn't have guidance either. We have a really cool, nice community out here in the Boston area. People are very friendly, but if you're kind of like a wallflower, like I'm kind of a wallflower, you have to drag some stuff out of me sometimes. I'm not going out talking to people and asking questions like, what should I be doing? Or how's that or whatever. And we couldn't really find that. So we started this, and it's amazing. 40 years ago, you started the same exact way we are now, but here we are.
Thank God for technology. I was a baseball player. I had to try it with the Kansas City Royals, and my whole life that's what I was going to do. I was going right to Cooperstown, and I was going to be a superstar. And I got a second look, but I didn't get signed. It's like, what do I do now? So about 4 months later, I went to a stand-up comedy open mic, and I had no idea what to expect. I'm thinking, well, I like comedy. There's probably going to be 2,000 or 3,000 people there, and it's going to be really great. And it's like, what? There was 9 people there and a bartender, and I was the only one that wasn't a comedian.
That sounds exactly like the open mics that we go to now. It's nice to know that things haven't changed.
The good thing that I think you guys are in Boston it's always been a comedy town. Some of the biggest names in stand-up have come out of Boston. I'm from Milwaukee. I think it's the German influence there. Germans aren't funny. Name me one famous German comedian. I'll buy you a six-pack. Krauttop does not exist. Boston's got a scene. It always has. I can name you 20 comedians from Boston. The Stephen Wright, Jay Leno, Anthony Clark. I mean, just a million of them. John Panette.
Yeah, it's
Lenny
insane.
Clark.
Even now, like you go to these open mics, and there's so many really talented people that have only really been doing it for a couple of years, and you're like, how have you only been doing this for a couple of years? You're hilarious.
Yeah, Boston seems to keep recycling the crop too. Like after the Stephen Wright and everything, you were saying that then the Bill Burr, Joe Rogan, Louis C.K. era of comics came out of Boston and all that, which is to churn out generational stalwarts. Every cycle really is a testament to Boston, because they talk about Austin a lot now. They talk about California, obviously, and they talk about New York. Boston doesn't get, I don't think, its fair share for how many at the top Mount Rushmore comedians came from here.
Well, absolutely, they do with me. I know, because I could never get in there because all the comics would take the spots in Boston. So they didn't need out-of-towners there. They had their own scene, and they worked the New England area, and they all did well, and it was like its own thing, which is totally cool.
Are you familiar with the Ding Ho? Does that mean anything to you?
I think that's on the Chinese restaurant menu. I think after
There
Szechuan,
was
you have Ding Ho.
yeah, no, there was it's a mic that's been restarted here after many years. I'm not super familiar with it, but it used to be a really popular mic back in the day, where a lot of the big names would go, and it was like nothing was off the table. You could go there, work on stuff, and it was a big comedy mecca essentially. And it went away for a long time. And a couple guys in the Boston area located where the Ding Ho used to be, what place it was, and they started it back up again. I think this is the second week they've done it.
Nice.
I don't know how well it's going, but it sounds like it's pretty popular still. But it's
Ding
pretty
and
cool.
Ho, and
Yeah.
Now, what part of the area is it in a suburb, city?
Anthony, do you know that? I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, it's in Somerville, so it's I think it's right outside of Davis Square in Somerville.
Because I'm just every place the neighborhood changes over time, and you have different residents.
No, yeah, this is
younger,
the stomping
older,
ground like
ethnicity.
Lenny Clark and all that. So that was his. So basically, Lenny Clark, Stephen Wright, all those guys were.
Steve
Ding Ho
Sweeney,
was the place that they could go up on.
Jimmy Tingle.
Yep.
Yep.
It's funny. One of my first road weeks, I worked with Jimmy Tingle. This is in Indianapolis. Jimmy Tingle was the headliner, and Brian Kiley was the feature act, and I was the opener. I was the only comic on the show that could say R. Pack the car, da 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 da. And that's just so weird to me because I was but super nice guys, super funny, and I just learned about the Boston comedy scene through them. So much respect.
Yeah. One of the questions that I ask all of our guests. So you had mentioned you're walking down the street, you saw the open mic. Was that the first time you went on stage? Was that day, or did you go and watch and you said, "Man, I think I can do this"?
I thought I was going to go watch. I was just going to watch comedy, and they said, "Well, this is an open mic." I had never heard that term before. If anybody wants, I thought these guys are terrible. I can do that, and it's
Yep.
just like if anybody wants to come up and try it, and it's just like a involuntary reaction. My arm went up, and I went up there, and I was just eating cheese off the big wheel, and you don't know how long 5 or 3 minutes is until you hear that silence, like you're walking on the moon, Jack. And I ad-libbed something. There was a guy putting a hit on a woman, and I said, "Hey, look at this guy. He's got the guy named James Lofton played for the Packers. He's a Hall of Fame football player. He's got better hands than James Lofton." And it got a laugh. And that was the first hit of heroin right there. That went right through the veins. Oh, and there was about 35 people. That was the end of the night, and that's what hooks you. And I read, people that take heroin, it's like the first high is perfect and euphoric, and you chase the rest of your addiction trying to chase that high, and you never catch it.
Yeah, we've talked about that. My first time on stage was Anthony's second time, and I didn't want to go on stage, but when they called my name, I stood up and I marched up like I was king shit. I did my set. I sat down. We watched another comic or two. I paid my tab. We went out to the sidewalk, and I started shaking like a junkie. That's a feeling that I still haven't had yet again, that first time. But I've come close. But that's something that's like, wow.
Did either one of you have anything written, or did you just go up there and kind of wing it?
I think we both had written stuff.
Yeah. I rehearsed pretty well. Like my first set, I think they gave me 7 minutes or something, and I had 6 minutes, and I had it worked out pretty good. I ate shit wall to wall, so no high at all during that one. That was all shit eating the first time I went up. But I had a good idea of where I wanted to go with the set, and I thought the jokes were good. I just didn't have the stage ability to execute them. But the second time went a lot better.
I always equate it to trying to throw a ball with your opposite hand.
Yeah.
Your brain knows what it wants to do, but your muscles aren't built up to that point yet, and it's laughable. Or even when you start in school and you're going to write the letters, and on the wall to see what they're supposed to look like, and you get that big giant pencil, and it's nothing like that.
Yeah.
It takes time, and I think anybody. I've taught classes for a long time. The first thing I teach classes, I can't make you funny. There's no secret formula that's going to make you pass, but you got to do the work. I can show you where to go, but you have to do the work. And I think so many people try to do a shortcut, and there just aren't any shortcut. Enjoy the process. It's fun being on stage. It's fun, like you said, to get that shake, that that euphoric thing. So just I say enjoy that. It's easy to say, I was in my 20s and I'm going to be a star in 3 weeks and blah blah blah. And it's like, okay, relax, cruise control, baby. Long
Takes
ride.
time.
A fun part of it too is the ability to go up night after night or week after week, and it's kind of mediocre. And then you have one night that just everything hits, all cylinders firing, and then the next night you go up, it's a complete bomb.
Yeah.
I you could do the same exact thing the same way, but maybe you didn't read the crowd right or whatever. And I love the difference night to night, and learning how to change yourself to fit the audience.
Sometimes if you do more than one show, and a lot of clubs used to do that, I don't know if they still do, you could have that same experience in same stage, 2 shows, one night.
Yeah.
You're knocked out of the park the first show, and then an hour and a half later, crickets.
Mm-hmm.
True, it happens.
Yeah.
I think the fun part is you've got some muscles building when you can enjoy the bomb, because it means you've done well a few times, and it's like, okay, it's not me, it's you, the audience.
We have a friend, Jacques Lambert, who also has a podcast. He's a comic in the area, and he was talking about a story with Bill Burr had come to the area and did a mic somewhere around here, and he bombed like really bad. Like he was getting practically booed off stage. Mm-hmm. And when he got off the stage, he went out back, and the manager of the club was like, "So sorry, like I don't know what's going on." The crowd, and Bill Burr was like, "That was fucking awesome. That was the worst I've bombed in years." And it was like that was the high again, like. I always think back to I've heard stories of Steve Martin wanting to stop comedy because he goes on stage and people laugh because he's Steve Martin, right?
Sure.
And I think he might have. I don't know if this is like an urban legend or whatever, but he might have gone on stage and done a set that he knew was just garbage, and people laughed anyways. And he's like, "All right, it's over for me on this end of it." Because they're just going to laugh at anything I say.
I had a similar experience. Robin Williams used to drop in clubs all over the country, and I was managing the Funny Bone. I don't know if there's any Funny Bones out your way, but it's a big national chain between the flyover states. And it was Sunday night. I'm managing the club. There's 40 people in the room, and the phone rings. I'm hosting the show, but I'm also answering the phone. Mm-hmm. Hello, Funny Bone. Hey, this is Robin Williams. Yeah, really? This is Richard Pryor. How you doing? Nice to meet you. No, really. I'm in town. I want to come do a set. Okay, you better get here. And it's, foot of snow on the ground, and it's a Sunday night, and he shows up, and the headliner before he went on said, "Robin Williams is supposed to come. We'll get you off stage." So we got him the headliner off stage in about 30 minutes, and people are looking at their watches like, well, the show shouldn't end now. And I said, well, what do you want me to say about you? And he said, I want you to say, this is a guy that wants to try comedy for the first time. Please welcome Robin Williams. Okay. So I said that, and he walked to the stage facing the wall away from the audience. And he turned around, and he just did the Olympic, I'm here. And it was a gasp, and the air went out of the room, and he got a standing ovation. And he did an hour and a half, and they were pissing themselves laughing. And he got off the stage, and he got another standing ovation. And he come up, and he said the same thing. He came up to me and said, "Hey, was any of that stuff funny?" I went, eh. He goes, "Hey, up here." He got really pissed off. We're just kidding around. And he said the same thing. He goes, "I don't know if they're laughing because it's me or because it's funny."
Oh,
so
that
that's
must
kind of
be
a good problem to have, but a bad problem, too.
Yeah, that's a nightmare for me because when I first started doing it, I thought that, all right, I'm going to write bad jokes because I don't have the ability to write good jokes. But when I have the ability to write good jokes, I'm going to know it. And I'm going to be able to just go, I know what's good, and I'll know what's going to get a laugh and all that stuff. And then you realize that you really have no idea how a joke is ever going to go until you do it. That's the only way you can, in your head, be so confident that this joke is going to kill. But then you got to go out there and make it work in a conversational style. So I can imagine being so famous that you don't get to have that. It just kills right away all the time. And they're like, I don't even know if this is good. Because
Jackie Mason was a guy. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. No,
go ahead.
He's been around 50 years at the time. He passed away now. And if you don't know who that is and you're watching the podcast, go check out Jackie Mason. Jewish guy couldn't talk like this. Very, very famous for a long time. And I got to work with him, and he said the same thing. He goes, every joke I do is a guess. I've been doing it 50 years, and exactly what you said. He goes, I think I got a lot of experience, but they're the judge. And it changes so much. That's what keeps you humble. And I don't care who you are, Bill Burr, highest guy, you're going to bomb. It'll be farther apart than it used to be when you start. Maybe now you do half good show, half so-so, and then you bomb once in a while. When you get up there, you think, I got this all figured out, and you'll go up there one time, and you'll just suck the big tuna, man.
Yeah, that happened to us at a comedy competition we did, actually, because we were practicing the same 5 minutes for a good about month before we went to this comedy competition. And by the end of it, we were saying shit to each other like, well, I know this joke's going to get a laugh, so I'll make sure I put that there just because I know how it's going to go. And then we went up and we did way worse than we thought we were going to do with the set. And it makes you completely reevaluate.
Can I just throw one thing, please, about comedy competitions? And I know there's new comics watching. I despise comedy competitions on every level. I did San Francisco, and I'm not bragging. I got in the finals. I should have won it. I lost on a technicality. I won't bore you with the long story, but but the only person that's not pissed off at the end of a contest is the one that wins. And are they the winner? The judge is somebody's aunt, somebody's coke whore girlfriend, some DJ radio guy that thinks he's funny. And it's such a self-esteem crusher. I wish they would bar them. You can't. A lot of really great comedians would suck at a contest. A lot of people that are hacky and win a contest, but they can't do 30 minutes in a club. So, well, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I just can't stand them.
I was going to agree with you 100%. So the one we did a couple weeks before, a friend of ours had done it, and this competition is won on audience applause. And the person that won had never been on stage before, but lost a bet for fantasy hockey or something like that. Mm-hmm. And so he lost a bet, never did comedy. His punishment was to go do this comedy competition. And when he went, he brought like 30 people to come. So he had more than half the class. So he ended up winning, or half the class, half the crowd rather. He ended up winning just because all these people came to see him, and the people that were practicing and honing their craft were sitting there like, eh. I mean,
that took off the pressure from us pretty good, though, because we were like, well, then it doesn't really fucking matter.
It did. It did. But I'm not going to say if I didn't win. If I won, I definitely would have been like, I got it.
I mean, everybody wants to win. I get that. And it's comedy. It's not a competition, is what I'm saying. The only competition, I know this sounds corny, is with yourself. Yeah. And you do better than yourself. And it's hard not to watch people that you guys started at the same time. He's getting better, or she's doing this, or I'm falling behind. Hard not to see that, but you got to put the blinders on. It's as hard as that might be.
We have that conversation privately between Anthony and myself, and we're not really like jealous types. We both want to see everybody do really well. It's good for everybody when everybody's funny, when everybody succeeds. It just makes more opportunities for everyone.
And not me. I'm jealous as hell. Speak for yourself, dickhead. Every time I see somebody get something I don't get, I'm like, give it to me.
Crash and burn.
But it is tough sometimes. You see some things, you're like, oh man, I wish I got that, But it's all about having fun in the end.
And it's a long haul thing too, and some people are late bloomers, some people are early bloomers, and that's just never going to change. There's some people that have a charisma, just a natural thing, and it's like you have it or you don't, and some people get it.
Mm-hmm.
So most people talk about finding their voice in comedy, like, oh, it took me this amount of time to find my comedy voice. You've seen a lot of people find their voice. How long do you think it takes a comic on average to do that? Do you think it's like some can take 20 years and some can take a month, or is there more an average to it?
Yeah, and I think I call it peeling your personal onion, and that's exactly what you're doing. Everybody that you talk to, Louis C.K., there's when you're around the country, he started in Boston too, didn't he?
Yep.
Yeah.
I believe. Is he from there? Started there?
Yep.
Very nice guy. I don't remember if we're in Chicago or Minneapolis, somewhere in the Midwest, and there's a showcase, usually on a Monday or Tuesday night. There's 12 to 15 acts that go up, and it's always for HBO or Comedy Central or Tonight Show or Letterman, whatever it is. And it was one of those kind of nights. And I just remember, okay, Louis C.K., that's kind of an unusual name. And he went up 7th, and I went up 4th, or whatever it was. We're both in the middle of the pack, white guys that went up. And I looked, and we talked to a really nice guy. I'm thinking, his act is not that great. I did better than he did on that particular night, and I'm the first one to admit I'm hard on myself. And we talked for a while, and thinking, hey, good luck, I'll see him on the road. About 6 months later, bam. And every comic that hits says, it all comes together, and that happens when it happens. I don't know if you guys got kids. When does a kid walk? A kid walks when it walks.
Yep.
6 months, 8 months, 9 months, whenever it does. You're going to break its legs if it doesn't walk by a certain. Some will be a little earlier and a little later. And Richard Pryor, got off stage, and George Carlin too. It was both in Vegas, and they crafted an act of what they weren't happy with doing creatively, and it made them money, made them a living. But they just got to the point where screw this, I'm going to do what I'm going to do, and they walked off stage, started their own thing, and came back. I'm to that point now at 40 years in. And it's like, holy God, oh God, I'm the world's latest bloomer. But I think you'll know, but I don't think you can say it's going to be 5 years, going to be 10 years. You got to learn how to do jokes. I think the first 100 times you're on stage have nothing to do with being funny. You got to go up early in the show. You got to go up late in the show. You got to follow someone that kicks ass. You got to follow someone that eats it. You got to follow a bad MC. You got to have a heckler. You got to have the waitress drop a tray of drinks right in the middle of your set. You got to learn how to deal with all those things like an NFL quarterback. You know, they got the arm strength, they've got the physical ability, or they wouldn't have been drafted. It's the in-game situation that you have to worry about. And now, to get 100 times on stage, how many times do you think you guys have been on stage?
We talked about this a couple weeks ago, right?
Yeah, so we're this week is our 9-month.
Okay, how many times a week do you go up, though?
A couple, I'd say 2, sometimes 3, but mostly 2 a week.
Okay.
Yeah, like you said, we both have kids, full-time jobs, wives, all that. So
no, I got
that's
it.
what
God
we can
bless
do.
you. I am not talking down to you.
Yeah, no, not at all. But you figure that what's in the beginning it wasn't quite twice a week. Maybe we probably started that about 2 or 3 months in. So
I'd say between 60 and 75 times would be my estimate so far.
Okay.
Yeah, that's probably fair.
So you're still in your spring training, and there's
100%.
That. And
100%.
God bless you that you're even talking about this kind of stuff. I mean, I remember starting. I got one time a week. It was a Monday night, that open mic I was talking about, and there was no other comedy in the state. And so it's 57 weeks in a row, every Monday night, and so you can't get a groove going on then. And then a couple other rooms started opening up, and then the boom happened a couple years later. But when the boom happened, by the time I was 22 or 23, I was getting on stage 5, 6, 7 times a week. Getting paid gigs to MC, and it's like, oh my God, that never happens now. And I totally admit I suck just as bad as everybody else does at that particular time. That was a time that'll never happen again in history. You could make a living, at least survive. You might have to eat beans and wieners, but you could go on the road. And now they can't do that, so it takes comics longer to develop now. That's not a bad thing. It's just true.
Yeah, that might be a blessing in the long run, getting your chops before you get out there.
Yeah, and I also think, too, to have that family. I know, the kids, and they can be a pain in the ass and wives and stuff, but you have life balance. I went all in for comedy, and it's just, I totally regret that now. Mistake.
Yeah, I cherish every second with my kid. Like I said, we've been doing comedy 9 months. My son's 4.5, and I feel like that first three years, 2 years and 9 months or whatever went by so fast.
Yes.
And it goes by even faster when I'm trying to shove this in. So I'm not gonna go more than I have to because I want to see him grow up. I don't want to be absent. But you also need your me time, and for us, that's our. It's like our softball. We meet up a couple times a week, and we do this.
And your kids are gonna love you, but they'll look back and say, "My dad was a comic," and to them, you're gonna be the biggest stars in the world. So do that life balance, man. I can't stress that enough, and I'm glad you're doing it.
That's one of my favorite things. Before I leave, a lot of times I leave before after he goes to bed, and I'll go sit with him for a second, and he'll look at me and go, "Daddy, are you gonna go be a comic?" And I'm like, "Yes, I am. Yes, I am, buddy." It's my favorite thing ever.
Sweet, love that.
Yeah.
He says stuff. Boo right before Wayne leaves the room, but yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
Call that comedy? You're a hack, Dad.
So we started off with your first time on stage, and a lot of times my second follow-up to that is, do you remember any of your first jokes, and do you do them still? But it sounds like you kind of winged it.
Oh, I totally did. Winged it, wung it, wang it, whatever it is.
Yeah.
I think that I consider it baby teeth. Everybody has baby teeth that are useful for a time, then they fall out one by one, and they never come back again, and their regular teeth grow back, and that you use those for a lifetime until they fall out.
Yeah.
And I think the same thing when you're starting out. You're doing the first or second grade level of jokes. A plus B is anything but C in whatever formula you can come up with. Usually you're not going to do those jokes a year or two out, but that's okay. You got to do something. I mean, and the bad part is someone will come up to you in your open mic circle, and you might not see him for 2 or 3 or 4 years or even 6 months, and they come up to you and they'll say one of your jokes back to you, and you'll cringe. Oh my God, I don't even do that anymore.
Yeah.
And they're doing it as a compliment because they thought it was a funny line.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So when that happens to you, take it as a compliment because you're editing and making yourself better and throwing stuff out. They saw something that you did and thought it's funny, so they're saying it back to you as a compliment, but you're cringing at the time. So that'll happen.
Mm-hmm. How far along was it before you started teaching the Maxwell Method of Comedy?
10 years. And the reason I called it the Maxwell Method is Colonel Sanders did not invent fried chicken. He put his name and his face on the bucket, and he came up with his own recipe. I sure didn't invent stand-up comedy, but I made some badass mistakes, man. So I got in a car accident, and I flipped a convertible over, and I broke my sternum. Yeah.
I actually was listening to that. You did was it Caldwell Bankers?
Oh,
you
yeah.
You did, yeah. I was listening
Wow,
to that today, actually, and you told that story, and I was like, oh, god damn.
My jaws wired shut, and I couldn't. I had to learn how to walk again. And I was a radio guy in Milwaukee, and it was in the newspaper. Hey, local comedian, radio guy is going to be messed up for 6 months, almost died. And a night school called Continuing Education said, "Hey, do you want to teach a comedy class?" I just thought that was so weird. It's like, you can't teach comedy. You either have it or you don't. And they said, well, I'd be willing to pay you. And I said, Tuesday at 7 o'clock, we're having a class. I said, okay, I'm going to put something together. I thought it would be like you guys that wanted to be comedians. It turned out it was anybody but that. People. We had a teacher, we had a minister, we had a college professor, all walks of life that just kind of wanted to just kind of peek behind the curtain and see what comedy was about. And some of them tried it a couple of times. One guy was a car salesman. I thought, okay, this is for average people that want to just know the nuts and bolts, like a sports fantasy camp kind of thing. And it was totally fun. So since that time, I was 10 years in at the time. So now I've been teaching almost 30 years, more than, I think, 3,000 students. And it's just maybe 4 or 5 have really gone on to be full-time comedians out of all that. So it's probably 1 in 1,000. So, and again, and if you're watching this, and even you guys, if you decide, I want to do this for a couple of years, I want to raise my kids or be a coach, there's nothing wrong with that. Because just because you take a guitar lesson and you don't end up in Van Halen does not mean you're a failure. Enjoy comedy. It can be a fun hobby. It can be something to do on weekends with your friend, like a bowling league, make a few bucks, hang out. It's a rush when you're on that stage. So
it really is.
You guys put pressure on themselves, is what I'm trying to say. No, take the pressure off.
Yeah.
It's crazy too how we had a outside look of comedy before we started it, right? So you have all the preconceptions that you have before you go into it. And a lot of the time you go, all right, this is what I did at least. And I think a lot of comics when they start out, they feel this way. They're like, okay, so you got to do open mics for a couple of years. You got to gain your chops. If it takes 2 years for you to start getting paid gigs, so what? That's where you learn. And then 1 month into actually doing comedy, all that's out the window, and you're like, tomorrow I should be on Letterman. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
You're like, what's going on? Why am I not getting there already? And the patience is gone. So it's like everything else in life. When you have kids and they tell you, well, in a couple months I know you hate them right now because they're not sleeping through the night, William. But you have to, in a couple years, you're going to really miss that time that you had. And you just can't feel it in the moment. So weird how that works.
It totally is, and I think that the average person starting out, and I know I didn't, has no idea how long the line is. Hundreds of thousands of people think that they're ready for that 5 minutes, and I don't even know it used to be the Tonight Show, then it was Letterman. When I started. Now, what is it even? I mean, is it TikTok? Is it YouTube videos? I have no idea. How does any comic stand out, even if they're good? I don't know.
Yeah, you got to get on Rogan's podcast. That's the way.
Okay, good luck with that.
That was something I wanted to ask you. So, being starting out 40 years ago, I think the main goal was to get on Carson or Leno, however. And now you see people like Matt Rife posting crowd work clips and this and that on TikTok, and Troy, what's his name, Troy Bond, getting really popular on TikTok. So you've seen all of the iterations of the trends on what makes a comic popular. Does that I bet you never would have even guessed that. Obviously, 40 years ago, that people would be watching comedy on a phone, but
no. But you look back, you go way back to silent movies. Those people were stars. Then talkies came out, and a new group of stars came out. Then radio came out, and a new group of stars. And then TV came out. So now the technologies are coming out faster. So there's new groups of stars. I mean, I don't even know if you guys, Dane Cook, there's another Boston guy, I think. And he mastered the internet before anybody else.
Sure
it
did.
wasn't really TikTok at the time. I think it was MySpace.
Yep.
And he, good for him. And I look at him. I don't ever try to be a hater. And I will. And please, if you're a new comic watching this, it's so easy to say, well, I'm a purist. And Carrot Top was the big thing when I came up. Everybody hated Carrot Top because he did props. And I'm thinking I did too, because everybody told me that because not the purist. It's you got to be up there a straight monologist. Well, if people are laughing, I don't care if the guy's lighting farts. It's funny. Might not be funny to you, but Carrot Top is filling stadiums, and so is Dane Cook, and I'm working some cheese hut in Dubuque, and so it's business. It's show business. It might not be your style, but you can learn from everybody. Don't be a hater on anybody. Adam Sandler, there's another one I'm thinking. Oh my God, he shouldn't be near amplified sound equipment. He's horrible. Doesn't make me laugh, but he only made 10 movies that made $100 million each in a row. Tom Cruise didn't do that. He's the only one. So he's doing something right.
That's true. So I wonder, there are a couple misconceptions that I think happen in comedy, or maybe
More than a
concessions
couple,
that are
but
right.
go ahead. There's a lot of them.
Yeah, that. I wonder how you feel about them. So for one, is that starting out in comedy is something that should be done at a younger age, meaning a 20-year-old is a way better chance of getting successful in comedy than a 35-year-old starting in comedy, for instance. That's one conception that I hear. Another is that there's a certain amount of times a week comedy needs to happen for you to get to an RPM level. Like we see in Facebook groups that we're in. There was a discussion once about, how many times Justin George actually started it, one of our friends. How many times I can go out 2 times a week? What do I need to do to get better? Like, what should I work on during those 2 times a week? And most of the comics underneath were like 3 to 5 times a week is the minimum to get better, to be, if you want to take it seriously. And so we wanted to ask somebody that has the experience that you do with those 2 ideas. I hear comics say them all the time. Do you think they're true? Do you think there are parameters to those?
It probably is not what you want to hear. Yes, I do think it's true. And I think the 20-somethings, it's just because it becomes part of your, how can I say, just your nerve twitch. It's a part of your thing. I don't know if you guys are sports fans or not. It's hard to make a good sports movie, a baseball movie, because you have actors playing athletes.
Sure.
The same is true with a comedy movie if you have actors playing comedians. Like the movie, my generation was Punchline, Tom Hanks and Sally Field. I don't even know if that movie's around anymore, if you've heard of it, if you've seen it.
Yeah, definitely.
It's horrible. Most comedians can't watch it. But the public said, well, that must be what comedy's like. And it's not. I was just barely turned 20 years old, and I look at it now as an old fart. Thank God I did that. Doesn't mean you can't start at 35 or 40. Or a lot of people now are my age, and they've had a life. They raised their kids. They've got grandkids, and they're doing it like you guys. They're just starting out as a hobby. There's nothing wrong with that. I think you can't honestly, legitimately think that I have a chance to hit the big time, whatever the big time is. But now things are so different. What is the big time? If they get a hot TikTok or a hot look, there's, a club could hire them. So I think all rules are off the table. But basically, the younger you can start, the better. People say, well, Rodney Dangerfield didn't make it till he was 60. Yeah, but he did it for 15 years and then quit to raise his family and sell aluminum siding, and he still wrote jokes, and he still went to open mics, so he never truly quit.
No, the baseball analogy is perfect, because I played baseball too, and it drives me nuts every time I watch any kind of baseball movie. When I see them throw a ball, I'm like, that guy's never thrown a baseball in his goddamn life.
Or bat. You even step out the bat. There's just a subtlety. It is in your bones. It is in your psyche, in your DNA. And I think, too, that a sports... you can't. I always try to tell people. You think someone could play a major league sport on Friday and Saturday and have a day job? They're managing a Wendy's, but they're going to go out and play for the Red Sox. No, that's not going to happen. People say, well, can't you just have a day job and do comedy on weekends? No. I think if you really want to go for it, you got to do it full time. Now, you guys can't. So I'm not poo-pooing you. I'm not talking down to you. You're going to get to the best level that you can be, and you might decide 5-10 years from now, maybe you want to book some rooms. Maybe you want to own a venue, that kind of thing. You can still host shows. You can feature and headline once in a while. You can still be around the business and have a good time with it. But to really go for it, I mean, look at a guy like Bill Burr. He threw everything into that.
Yeah.
Did you watch
I
the
completely
Philadelphia
agree.
thing?
I think many people are in denial about this. I think a lot of comics think that once a week, twice a week can lead to success on it to more hobby. I think from the beginning we've been like, listen, this is what we got and what we can work with. I'm in a little different of a scenario only because I'm slightly more flexible in timing. So I think that to me, I talked to Wayne about long-term goals privately like a week and a half ago. And I'm thinking about like, all right, I'm not trying to have any goals that relate into anything that comes to do with getting shows or doing any of that. It's more material wise. And I want to know if I get to a certain point of material, I do have a jump off the diving board moment where I'm like, okay, I'm gonna give this the shot that it deserves. And I do like to hear from someone that's been through it that that's what you need to do to have it work, because it's almost like having the carrot in front of you while you're running in the treadmill, knowing like, all right, when I'm ready to make the step, I know what it takes. You just got to go 5 times a week. You got to get out there and do the work.
We would like to thank this week's sponsor for the Open Mic Pain podcast, the Blue Light District.
Oh, hi, everybody. I'm Barry Pipe Filler over here at the Blue Light District. If you need to get your veg cement filled in so that you will constantly be able to never be known that you had sex before, we will restore it. We will restore your veg. We will make sure we will insert semen to your penis so that you make it seem like you have never came before in your life. If anybody checks, it's going to be like you're a virgin for the very first time. Have you accidentally gone to the rough part of town and ended up in an alley and ended up full of something that you didn't want to be full of? We can restore! Bring you back to
Pay your dues. Let me ask you guys each this, and people watching too. What is your hope, your dream, your goal, your desire? And please be honest. It's you don't want to be a big superstar. Or you want to do, what is your idea of success? Both of you.
For me, I don't think I have the dreams of, everybody has the Netflix special or anything like that. I really enjoy just getting on stage and just like that's my moment of zen. 5 minutes or 7 minutes or 10, whatever it is.
Sure.
I really enjoy that. I like talking to other comics. One of the reasons I love doing this podcast is we've had so many incredible people on from different backgrounds and different things that they do, and talking to people and just enjoying their company. This is not a conversation we could have at an open mic in the basement of a bar in Lowell, Massachusetts, because there's somebody on stage, but we can do it here. So I love that. I don't know. I would like to be able to go. I'd like to be able to get to a point where I can get in front of a real audience occasionally, if it's once a month, twice a month. At this point, if I start getting better and progressively better, maybe that'll change. But for now, I kind of want to move away from the open. Not move away. I want to move up from the open mics occasionally, and just practice. I don't say practice. Test my material against an audience that isn't also trying to test their material.
Good.
If that makes
Well,
sense.
I'll take it further. So I heard a particular story while we're on Louis C.K. from before. I'll bring it up. So Louis talked about on a show called Opie and Anthony in New York. They were speaking of his beginnings in Boston. And he talked about how when he first got married, first started having kids, he was going to the Kowloon, Giggles Comedy Club, Nick's Comedy Stop, and he would do those every night, Wednesday through Sunday. They'd pay about $150 to $500 a spot, depending on the minutes, and he'd rush out to them. So he'd say at the end of the week he'd have $3,500 to $4,000 or something in that range. And he's really breaking it down. And he said at that point, he's like, I was making really good money, and I was doing something that I loved to do. And in my head, and obviously he was in the comedy boom at that point where they were allow you to do all those sets. But I see a lot of headliners now who are local guys who do those kind of shows every week. And I can imagine the money's in the similar ballpark for it. So to me, that's always been in my head of like, man, could you imagine if that was your job, how cool that would be? I'm in a different position too, where I do what I love already for work. I own my own businesses, and so it doesn't feel like work where I'm working. So I can see taking a step into comedy a lot easier. Like I'm not in a 9 to 5 where I'm like, what will I do if it doesn't work? So it's very tantalizing for me to jump in head first. But I've always had that in the back of my head. Well, like if Louis can go do that when in his first 10 years where he was terrible and make a living properly, I think that's a great goal to have in your head, is to be able to make money enough where you can support yourself and do comedy. So that would be huge. Outside of that, I mean, doing the road is a great experience that I want to have. But I would call that a milestone rather than a goal. I think doing the road will be essential to get better. But
I just don't think it exists anymore to be able to make a good living like that. I don't. True. I never made that kind of money. You know, I know. I heard Boston always had the opportunities there. I was based in the Chicago area. I'm from Milwaukee. It's 90 miles away, and like New England, there's a lot of towns around that, so I could do a lot of things in Michigan and Indiana, Chicago and Wisconsin, and blah blah blah. But I went all over the country too. Now I don't think you have to do road work because there are comics in those places. I was when I started, there weren't enough comics, so they had to travel around. Now, wherever you go, there's
That's a good
comics.
point. So the road is less emphasized now than it was back in the day.
Way less.
Wow, yeah. Because I obviously I listen to Joe Rogan pretty frequently on his podcast, as many people do a lot. But he says frequently that it was always he's like, I love the guys who stayed in Boston, but you need to get on the road. He's like, you would need to get on the road as soon as you possibly could. And that was the way to exponentially get better. And since I've been starting doing comedy, I'm like, I don't know how to start doing that. How do you, I would love to go, I'll go on the road right now, but I don't know, where's the road?
Here's the thing that I think you do need to, everybody needs to learn, and you don't realize it is, comedy is very, regional. And I think, there's guys that could go in Boston, and I'll say Jimmy Tingle and Brian Kiley in Indianapolis, they had to adjust because it's the Midwest. The people speak differently. Some people say pop, some people say soda. I do a whole bit about that. And I think you have to work the South, the East, Canada, all over the place to get that. That's why it takes a comedian longer to develop. I really think so. So the road for comedic purposes does. I think music's the same way. And talking about Boston, Aerosmith said that they were huge in Boston where they're from and their first album, but they couldn't get arrested anywhere else. It takes time, and I hate to say that because when you're starting out, you think it's like you guys said, it's going to take 2 weeks, and then I'll have my HBO special. Let me ask you this: do you guys want to be comedians or do you want to be stars? I think you have to ask yourself that too, because most people don't know.
Yeah, I definitely just want to be a comedian. I love a laugh. I don't care where it is. I'm always looking for it. I could care less about fame and fortune. I'm not photogenic. I'm fucking an ugly fuck. I don't care. I just want to hear that laugh. That's all I care about. There's nothing better than the few sets I've had where I go up and it's just nonstop laughter. And over 9 months, it's been like 2. But
it's all right.
I fucking love that. That's my favorite thing in the world.
Good. Yeah, see, Wayne's been giving you the politician answers the whole time. Every time you've asked that, it's like, I want it for the love of the game. And this time I wanted to do again and tell you the truth of the matter. But I hate people and fame and all. Like I did my first Facebook post today because someone booked me on a show, and I'm like, I got to do my part and post out there. It's my first Facebook post in 10 years, I think, or something like that. I hate
your first book show. Congratulations.
Exactly. First real one, that's for sure. Well,
First one that's selling tickets.
First one selling tickets. Yeah. So that's the milestone there. Yeah, exactly. So I'm excited about it. So I posted on there, but I hate the idea of anybody thinking about me. I don't know, which is a weird thing to do comedy for and a podcast to have that mentality, but I don't have an Instagram. My Facebook is pretty inactive. I feel like it poisons people's brains on there and they argue with each other all day, and that is just like a waste of time for me. But to see it, but I correlate that over to the idea of comedian versus star to I fucking love comedy. My whole life, instead of music, I was in a band and I would listen to only old comic albums in the car when we drove. So I was really interested in the craft. I heard Tom Segura. I went to see him live, and he had a bit that was something about how you guys couldn't do this. Like he was just saying, look at what I'm doing. There's no way you could do it. So it was a bit shitting on the crowd for it. And I started thinking, I couldn't do that. I don't know how he goes up and does what he does. So there's a mystery behind it. And then you find the Wizard of Oz where it's just work. And you're like, oh, okay. You just got to go out. There's no magic to it. There's just you behind the curtain.
Fascinating. I love to hear you guys have this mature out, bigger picture view, because it's how it is. Sadly, I think what has changed in 40 years is you have to have that. I don't have an Instagram. You need that. You need Facebook. You need all that stuff. I hate it as madly or worse than you do. But that's why people say, well, who's this old guy I never heard of? God, you're funny. How come I never heard of you before? Because I was working on comedy, not, lighting farts on a TikTok.
Yeah. that kind of leads into something I wanted to talk to you about. Anthony had mentioned that the internet it's a intrinsically horrible place. I'm part of a lot of different Facebook groups that comedy writing group, stand-up comedy writing groups, different things in that vein. And a lot of times people will post things like, "Hey, I have this idea for a joke," and they'll post it, and then people will be like, "Oh, you're fucking horrible. What do you do? That sucks. Don't do it." But your Facebook page, which is the Maxwell Method of Comedy, is the only page, and maybe I'm missing it. I don't know. I don't think I am. The only page I've ever seen only positive stuff.
That's done by design, and I don't take shit on that. And it's like I have my little corner of the world on the internet. Well, who the hell are you? Well, every baseball team needs a utility player. The fans might not know who he is, but the teams know how important they are. I am that in comedy. I can open, I can middle, I can close, I can book a show, I run rooms. I've been through all the shit and all the mistakes and all the things through all these decades. And I say, okay, I want to have one place where comics, you guys are the stereotypical people I am looking for. Younger, newer, interested comics who want to get good. I also have people like Jimmy Brogan, who is a head writer for The Tonight Show. Tom Dreesen is in the group. So it's newbies and veterans talking about things on stage and off objectively. I say it until people sit here, and I don't claim to have all the answers. This is what I think from my experience. Mm-hmm. What do you think? I'm not above turning around, and I don't take any haters. I kick them out of my group.
That's godsend. I remember our second set so Wayne's first set, my second set, I uploaded onto Reddit, and I was like, "Hey, I'm new. Why don't you let me know how I can get better?" And the first comment that came out was, "Let me tell you everything wrong with you." And he went, "You are disheveled. You are narcissistic. You say a joke about hurting an animal, which you should never do. And your clothes are terrible." And I was like, all right. I deleted the video. I was like, never doing that again. That is So to have a safe room like yours is definitely the place that everybody should go. Because my God, I gave up the internet at that point.
People you need a mentor and not everybody. I had a shitty father. I don't know if a lot of comedians do. I don't know about most, but a large number. But you need that. Son, I love you. You shit your pants. That's okay. We're gonna make it better together. And so many comedians have that fallacy, the misnomer. I have to go up on stage and bomb by myself, and I'll figure it out. No other profession has that. Surgery. I'm gonna lose some people. I'm gonna slice them up but I'm gonna do heart surgery until I learn how to do it. No, there's a lot of different things. You got to crawl before you walk, before you run. And I keep using a sports analogy like the NFL quarterback. There's a million things you got to do in a split second when you're up there. That's why you have that 100 times that you guys are in that mode right now. It's great if you get laughs. You said you had 2 great ones, Wayne. Okay, well, good. That's bonus time. If you have no great ones and you're on your 65th, you got 35 more to go, and 2 a week, you're talking another several months. Then we can start talking. Then you're done with spring training, and now it's opening day.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
It's a perfect way to put it.
Well, I love and one thing I love about your Facebook page, every day, Monday through Friday, you post a question with a very well thought out. I'm going to call it an essay. It's almost an essay.
Yeah, kind of.
Do you do that every day? Are those do you just sit down one day and just be like, here's the month of May, and pre-post? There's so much information there. And I'm not one to sit and go through all of these, but when we first connected, I started really looking at them, and I was like, God damn, there's so much good information here. Like, how can I not sit here and read all of this stuff? It's incredible.
Thank you for that. Nice. I try to do it things that I would have wanted to know when I started. And when I started this group, it's been about 10 years now for the group. And I thought a question of the month, then it was a question of the week. I think no, there's enough things that I can do a question of the day. So I try to do at the beginning of the month. I'll flesh out the questions, and sometimes I'll read a post or I'll talk to you guys or something will happen. I'll switch it around the order, and I also leave it open if you guys want to ask a question. I'll put that out there too. I just think it's not only I'll do what I think, and then 25 other people will comment. I just think it's a nice little self-contained lesson on whatever subject we're talking about. Okay, I'll throw out some points, but there's always other stuff that comes around too. So it really works well. And some of them I think, oh, I got a great one, and I'll get 3 responses. Other ones, I'll just throw this out there and we get 100 responses. So never really know. It's like a hit record or anything else. But thank you for noticing. And again, you are the ones that are it's meant for. Because there's so many questions that you got to. Where do you go? Who do you ask? The last thing, honey, is this funny? No, don't ask your wife. Don't ask your kids. They love you, but you got to ask someone that knows what you're talking about.
It's funny. One that really got me was just a few days ago. You had said something about updating your contact list, and I'm a salesman in my day job.
Okay,
and that's something I do. Like, I know all of my contacts. I make sure I keep in contact with all of them. I never thought of that on the comedy end of it. Like, you are selling yourself. In my job, my boss taught me this, and I stick with it. You need to sell yourself before you can sell anything. And
true.
That's true on the comedy end, too. As much as you would like to think that getting booked on a show would be, hey, this guy's really funny, I want to book him. Well, they have to like you as well. They have to know you, and, a lot of times. Not always, but... There's
a lot of funny people.
Yeah, there's a lot of funny people. And if there's... Anthony that's wicked funny, and Dobie who's wicked funny, and I don't know Anthony, but I know Dobie, maybe I'm going to pick Dobie over Anthony.
It's totally true. Martin Mull is a guy, maybe you don't know who it is. He's from the 70s and 80s. He said show business is high school with money. And it's so true.
No shit.
It's exactly what it is, man. I see the younger comics, and they got these posters that look absolutely great, man. It looks like Lollapalooza and everything, and there's 12 comics, and they all suck. No offense, but the poster looks so great, and they go to a bar. We'll do the whole show for $100, and in the mob, if you undercut it, they'd whack you for stuff like that. Now I'm having a hard time making a living. I'm making less money now than I was 25 years ago, just because of that reason.
Yeah, I know what you mean. There's too much content.
Geek salad. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Too much content basically out there because people are putting it out for nothing because it's not really, like you said, it's not a career for them. So they're going to rent out the places that you would normally have a club reach out to you and be like, hey, I need a professional to come do this. Now they're like, this guy's got an Instagram page. He'll come for $50.
And they're scorching the business too, and they don't realize that they're doing it. You can't tell me where to work. No, I can't. But if it was the other way around, and I did it to you, you'd want me assassinated. Mm-hmm. And a smart thing too, if you're a young comic and you're looking to get stage time, there are plenty of experienced comics that even if you got a feature act to close the show, have something to reward the audience for showing up. A 4-hour open mic with ranked newbies. Who would sit through that? It's like going to someone else's t-ball game. It's not your kid. Would you sit and watch that? Hell no, you wouldn't.
Yeah.
So,
I love it.
I'm complaining. You kids get off my lawn.
Hell yeah.
No, we're in the same boat. We've had this conversation many times. We've talked about we have book shows here. We have the Mike Katrobises out this way, Mike Katrobis and Pat Collins and Jim McHughes, who are putting on these shows that have legitimate people who deserve to be on a stage. And then you have some other ones where there are really funny people, but they can't compete with those shows that those other guys are putting on. And you're right, they might be taking eyes away from others. I mean, they should still be doing them, I guess. I mean, there's everybody for somebody for everybody, right?
Well, while we're on that topic with Mike K and Pat Collins and all that, this is a good segue point that I wanted to ask a question about the Dobie. So, what we're doing right now, the circuit of like I don't want to call them higher end book shows, but just like the local, there's a buffet and then there's a comedy show and then there's a nice lineup and they do them all the time and all that stuff. I see those are usually skewer older demographic audience members and cleaner comics. And that seems to be a lot what gets booked around here. And me in particular, I'll say, and Wayne too, I think he would say this, but he could speak for himself, but we're pretty blue in our comedy. It's darker stuff in there. And we feel the magnet pull of just do a clean set so they will let you go on one of their shows because they're not going to let you go on the shows with the stuff that you say. And then there's like the internal artist of us, which is I just want to say what I think is funny and I want the cream to rise to the top. But when you're at the bottom of the cream pile, you're not worrying about getting to the top. So, what do you, fucking 2-year-old Wayne over there? I lost him.
Sorry,
I lost him. So I guess to round out my question, what do you think?
Well, I always tell people clean leads to green. I am not a prude. I grew up around bikers, and my grandmother raised me. My grandmother could outswear the bikers. There's no combination of swear words that would offend me personally. I could sit here and fire it up. But for a business point of view, it's like having spicy food. Okay, there's a certain percentage of people who really like super spicy food, but the masses, as a rule, do not. I think you have to learn how to work clean to get on all those stages, to have the people realize, hey, Anthony and Wayne are good guys. I like them. Okay, you got to earn the right to skew to go blue, and I might like it. Good comedy. I like all styles. Blue, if it's funny, that's great. But to start off with that, I think you're shooting yourself in the foot from a business point of view. And the last thing you want to do is get a reputation of being a dirty comic. You'll never get booked in the good places. You just won't. And I don't care how woke or free or whatever term you want to use that we're just, no. And it's like when your money's on the line and you're booking a show and people that pay are offended, you know that you got to keep it clean. I know places, I know how to read an audience from being on stage for 40 years. And I'm not saying you can't do that kind of comedy, but you got to earn that right, and you got to learn the skill first before you put it in. That's my friendly advice. And again,
no, that's a great point. That's a fantastic point, because there are so many times where me and Wayne go, like, we go, why the hell are we not getting on that show? And then we think about it for a second. We're like, well, what would we do if we were the booker and we didn't know the guys who were going up? We probably put a safe act up there that we know.
How long are those sets usually that they book? 10, 15 minutes?
Yeah, 7 to 15 minutes.
Okay, so you guys are still putting learn how to walk.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Put together 7 to 15 minutes, and every punchline does not have to be in our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. I'm not saying it's got to be church material, but something that you could get on network TV, and even that's going the other way. And then you can have it in the background, but you're still in your first 100. You see what I'm saying? I call it a high five. Anybody calls it whatever they want, but your best five. If you had to go on stage in 5 minutes, woke out of a nap, go on stage, I want you to know that material frontwards, backwards. You can say it in your sleep. Because 5 minutes, people, I got hours of material. Really? How come you do the same batch? Give me 5 funny minutes. Set up, punch, set up, punch, set up, punch. And that takes a long time. I would say it takes 5 to 10 years to do that. They said Jerry Seinfeld, before he did his first Tonight Show with Johnny Carson, worked on his, I think it was a 7-minute set at the time, 80 times. 80. And every pause, every comma, he changed and went and out, and he went on there and he crushed with it. Now, I had Craig Ferguson was my first national TV. I did my show.
Great set, by the way.
Thank you. Now, we'll have another podcast. I will tell you all the 500 things that I did wrong with that set on stage and off. I blew it in so many ways. Thank you for those kind words. I'm not trying to be an asshole. But, I looked at now, I'm glad I screwed up, because I can sit there and people are very kind, and they say that. I say, okay, from start to finish, here's all the things that I did wrong. It's a lot harder than it looks. And whatever you think it's going to take, add 10 times to that. I'm going to be good in a year. Give it 10 years. You'll be at that point. And that's good, because it builds it. What takes longer to build takes longer to destroy. Believe me. How many comics go to open mics now and you'll see in the first game, how the fuck are you fucking fucked up fuckers? Okay, you just dropped 6 F-bombs in the first 9 seconds of the first comic of 15 comics on the set. Whatever tool that could be used for effect, and it's gone.
Yep.
It's funny you mentioned that. A quick aside on the story. I took a class for hosting for shows and open mics and all that stuff with that Mike Atrobus that we talked about. There was a guy, we call him Richie T. Awesome guy. He's going to be a guest at some point. We'll have him on. But he's this older Italian gentleman. He's hilarious. So one of the things Mike said was, if you're a host, don't go up and just start swearing. You want to be a likable guy. You want to bring the comics on. Leave that stuff to the comics. You're a host. Don't swear, blah, blah, blah. So we're doing all the practice runs. And Richie goes up, and he does his practice run of, the 3 things. Keep your phones off, keep the talking to a minimum, most importantly, laugh. Richie gets up there and he goes, listen, we're here to have a good time. Keep your fucking phones off. Keep your fucking mouth shut. And fucking laugh. I want to fucking hear all of you laughing. And it was one of the best things I've ever seen. And Mike was just dying laughing. He's like, I was wrong. Like, if that was fucking hilarious. That was great. You can do that. But yeah, quick aside, but that's
No, I'm glad you threw it in. And again, I don't know. The people that aren't offended by it are never going to be offended by it, especially out on the East Coast where you guys are. I mean, dropping an F-bomb, it's no big deal. But it's show business, and you want to. If you're putting in the work, you want to have a chance to get someplace. And what if you had to do a party that paid a good amount of money, and you could take your kids out to a ball game or a party? You want to have that available to you, that skill set available to you. Again, it's just a friendly advice, but I like you guys. I can tell. I've never seen your act. I like you enough now to say, okay, if I had a chance, I'd have you guys open for me because I can see the love of comedy. And if you went up and did dirty sets, I say, guys, I love you, but I don't want to follow that.
Yeah,
and again,
sure.
I'm not a prude. Business point, I don't want to follow. Jerry Seinfeld. I worked with Jerry Seinfeld one night. There was a big place in Chicago called the Mega Center. It was a 5,000-seat theater, and they did a comedy week. It was between Christmas and New Year's, and they had Leno and Seinfeld and Jeff Foxworthy, all these big Gallagher when he was still living was all there. So there was a Zany's Comedy Club. That's the big club in Chicago, and it was in the resort next to this Mega Center. So all those guys, Leno, and they all came over to the set. I was hosting the show. So Seinfeld was just about to get his TV show. I said, what do you want to say about you? He says, you've seen him on TV, Jerry Seinfeld. And he goes up, and huge ovation. And why is it? And he got off stage, and he goes, shit, I fucked up my opening. It's like, what? What are you guys looking at me for? Well, you swore. He goes, and he said, I'm from fucking New York. Of course I swear. I don't do it on stage. He said, it's a business decision. I thought, very, very interesting. And he didn't say, hey, Chicago, great. How about the Bulls, the Bears, something like that. He just did material because he said that's what they want to hear. And I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. It doesn't mean I'm right or he's wrong. But I just thought, you know what, to watch the big, they share a lot of characteristics. It is a business first.
I love the earn it
process.
I love the earn it factor that you said, because I think that's a differentiating point that we haven't heard before. Because when we hear, you know, like, oh man, like that's a good business decision to stay clean, you'll be like, well, what about goddamn Bill Burr? You know, he's out there and his whole life he's been doing blue material and it worked out for him and all that. But to hear you say
his early stuff,
he earned it.
He did earn it.
You know, the people are going to see him, who are going to see that show, knowing what he's going to say is going to be in that vein, and we're not at the point where we've earned that yet. So when we go say those things to unexpecting people in ambush style open mics, you're going to offend some people.
Watch early Pryor and early Carlin. Back in the 70s, Lenny Bruce really changed the game with a nightclub point of view.
Yeah.
But Carlin and Pryor were like the real, from the modern era, they really were huge. And they both worked squeaky clean to the point of that's not even what they're known for. Then they said, screw it, I want to do what I want to do. You guys need to get that clean point and then say screw it. That could be a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. Or you could say, you know what, I'm making a pretty good living. The key, I think, to really good comedy is say it without saying it.
Yeah.
You don't have to use the words. Can you be clever enough to say it without saying it? Howard Stern talked about it. He said, I know when I go, this is before he went to Satellite. He said, I'm screwed because if I can say, you know, whatever I want, there's no comic tension there. Now I got to go right to the toes, right by the line, and there's tension, comedy tension there. He goes, when there's no tension, my act is over. He's still been on the air for how many years? But the same with you guys. How can you say what you want to say in blue, not using it? Innuendo, hint, put that in the audience's mind. It'll make you better comedians. It really will.
That's an incredible point. I've actually had that conversation recently with I mentioned Jacques before. He had said, you know, either one of us, Anthony or I, could make our act completely clean with exactly what we said, say it without saying it. Like, you can say, does she do anal 1,000 different ways. You say, oh, is anything off the table or this or that? You know what I mean? Without actually saying it. But yeah, that's such a good point.
Is the gopher in the hole? You know, just you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean,
now, do you still consider the subject matter clean though? Like, let me give you an example. So I have a joke that is it's called "I'm a Bad Person." So the joke is a lot of people think they're good people, but I have a lot of data that I'm not a good person. Like, I like to watch My 600-Pound Life and eat a bunch of food because I know that they want it and they can't have it. It makes me better to have it. And so I go through a couple examples, and the last one is I love to watch To Catch a Predator. And that, because of the implication of I like to have it because they can't. I know that's the opposite of a clean joke, but there's no swears in it. So like, what do you consider like a dirty comic? Is the implication of something, does it get to a bad level enough via implication where it becomes dirty? Or
Well,
when
you know
you're
what?
talking clean, you're just saying don't swear?
If you can pull that off and have people hate you without swearing, you are a master ninja warrior. I'm proud of you. Talking about anal and catch a predator and all that kind of stuff. I think you got to use common sense. And I think a lot of comedians, we're all 9 years old and we want to, don't say that. Well, they're going to, exactly the first thing you're going to say. And I think until they know you, your first five should be, how long are the sets you guys are doing these days? After this much in, what's the longest? Maybe 10, 12?
Yeah.
Yeah, if I just got booked for 10 to 15, so that's kind of like, and I'm like, oh, that's gonna be tough. So that's
I did 13 a couple months ago, 13 minutes or so.
Okay, so you get in that situation now. When you sit down and talk to somebody, you meet somebody on a train or a ball game or something. What do you usually talk about? Where are you from? What do you do? Married or single? Blah, blah, blah. My uncle touched me when I was 8. What? Excuse me. When do you cross that line?
Yeah.
I don't think it's in the first 10 or 15 minutes. And again, I'm not being a prude when I say that. You guys are both smart. You're intelligent. You like comedy. I have never seen your act one time. But I'm just telling you, I can tell there's some watchability there. To go in with I would say at least 10 to 12 minutes before you even throw out a little feeler. Put your toe in the pool to see what it's like.
So let me ask you this in terms of that.
All right.
So with somebody like us who, we're just starting to get on things that are not open mics. Open mics are about 5 minutes long. We've done a couple that were 10 or 7. How do you practice something like that? If you can't go 10 to 12 minutes without saying like something a little off color, how do you practice that?
Hell of a good question. I mean, I don't want to keep us too late here, but open mics are another thing. After a certain time, they lose their value. People say, I went to 6 open mics last night. I don't care. It's like I keep using sports analogies all the time, but it's practice versus a game. It's better to be in front of a real audience for 5 minutes one time than 10 open mics.
100%.
And I don't care if your friends are there. What do comedians want? They want you to die of a heart attack so they can drag your smoking carcass off the stage and they can get your remaining 3 minutes.
Yep.
That's what they want. They're not there to laugh. They're not there to support you.
Yeah.
They're not there to be entertained. They hate you. And they might not even say that. So I think the people that kill at open mics, be wary. You're not gonna. You got to go out there, and that's the hard part. Like I say, where do you practice that? On stage, in front of strangers, and you're shaking like a 3-legged dog, crapping peach pits, going through heroin withdrawal because you don't know if they're going to like you. And that's the hard part, like the asteroid belt. You got to get out of the asteroid belt before you can go into outer space. You got to get through that comedy asteroid belt of doing that and just sweating your ass off, not knowing if they're going to laugh. How do you practice it? You write it, you guess, you think it's going to be funny, you got 10 minutes, and then your asshole slams shit because you did your bit at 4 minutes and you got 6 minutes to kill, and it's crickets.
Yeah, no,
That's hard,
definitely.
man. It weeds out the squeamish, I'll tell you that.
Luckily for Wayne, he's great at slamming his ass shut and sweating, so he's going to have a great time in the next part of his
slammed
comedy
asshole.
career, for sure.
Shutter.
All right, Wayne, you ready to wrap this sucker up?
Yeah. I think we covered everything that I was thinking of. So,
Guys, I really appreciate you having me, man. Thank you for doing what you do. If anybody's watching this, again, I don't claim to know everything. I've written some articles through the years. There's probably about 50 or 60 of them. I am delighted if you just join my comedy group, say I want them. I will send them to you free of charge. There's no strings attached. I'm not trying to sell you anything. Just when you get famous, either one of you or anybody watching, let me drive your limo. That's all I ask.
yeah, we'll put it all in the show notes. I'll definitely throw it in there. And like I said, I've been watching your page, and it blows my mind some of the stuff I read. I'm like, man, that's such good information, just free, just hanging out there. So
Sweet.
Yeah, and he
I
was being
appreciate
nice
that.
about it, but I'll tell you guys straight as it is. You're terrible and you need this. So call him and get the information. We are going to do it because we need it. We're in the same boat as you.
The secret to walking on water is knowing where the rocks are. I'll show you where a few of them are. And you can look like, again, it's open mics, and again, it's T-ball, man. You got to have a coach to show you the good things. I can just tell by talking to you guys, I'm excited for your careers because I want to see your acts. I can tell you got a spark there. I had that spark. And I used to talk to the headliners when I started, why are you such a bitter, pissed off asshole? And then one day I woke up, and I was that guy.
Yeah.
It beats you down. So I'm glad to talk to guys that still love the business. Thanks for having me, guys. I'll shut up now.
Dobie, thanks very much, man.
So I've seen, I saw you... Somebody had, like, are you accepting people's sets to like look at? And I saw somebody like mention that.
Yeah. What I do is I say, look, $99 is a fair price, and send me a 5 to 10 minute tape. I'll what you look like, your mic technique, and your material. And I go out of my way. I give way more than people pay for. I think I've got about 25. I just looking to get references. Yeah. And no one has ever, oh my God, it's way more than I thought. But you want somebody that can look at that. So yeah, that's my check. I probably should charge more, but that's what, $99. If you want to send me a video, I'll review it for people.
Oh, that's cool.
Love that.
I like that. That's a good idea because you like we talked about, people go to open mics and stuff, and you'll get. We actually do there's what is called a feedback mic. I don't know if you have any over there. In Chicago, but it's fantastic. You go up, you do 7 minutes, and people in the audience can say, "Hey, I like that joke," or you were talking too fast, or you're holding your mic too close up to your face, and whatever it is, and it's really cool. But there's really nobody out there that's doing that kind of thing, especially somebody as tenured as yourself.
Well, I just think it's good for comedy as a whole. It's not a big deal. It's like a diesel truck driving school. One more tip. I don't want to go too long, but one more tip. I think for the first 6 months to a year, it's smart business to leave the mic in the stand. And all my comedy classes, the people take the mic out. It's just one more thing that can go wrong. Mm-hmm. They're usually nervous. There's pacing back and forth, and you don't even know they're doing it. Leaving the mic in the stand, pointing it towards your mouth. You don't have to blow it. It doesn't have to be pointing down at you. You're doubling your gesture. It's good. When you get on TV, you're not going to be able to take the mic out of the stand. Leave the mic in the stand. People have argued with me every class I've ever taught.
Is that true? If you go on TV, like it doesn't come out?
They don't have a mic on TV. You have
it's a lapel
mic.
Oh, lapel. Yeah.
Yep. I think Stephen Wright did because that was his style way back then, but it's a very rare exception. So my point is to get used to that, and I never did. The first thing I did was take the mic out, and I'm all over the place. And I said, okay, what I say and what I do are two different things. And somebody in every class always fights me. I said, okay, I'm telling you why. I'm not yelling at you. I'm telling you why I say leave it in the class. Now watch. Take the mic out. And 100 times out of 10, you're at the corner of the stage, you're pacing all over the place, you're doing the funky chicken, you don't even know you're doing it. And the class can see it plain as day. It's like, I'm not trying to squelch you by, say, be clean or leave the mic in the stand or all those things. All I'm trying to tell you is these are things to take your mind off of what could go wrong and focus on your funny, your jokes, your persona. That's hard enough, man. Taking the mic, I've seen people take the mic out, the cord comes out. Now, and the cordless, okay, the battery clips out. You're screwed either way. Leave it in the stand, adjust it, boom, right by your face. It takes 1 second, and you're ready. You're ready to go.
It's funny. So I was a DJ before, before. I DJ'd from 16 to 29, I think it was. I'm 36 now, so I started comedy right before I turned 36. So having a mic in my hand, out of a stand. I never had a stand because it was a wireless mic. That's comfortable to me. So I've always, look at me, that's very comfortable to me to hold a mic in my hand to my face. So that's something I do all the time. And the other night we were at that feedback mic, and I tried so hard to stand there and just talk into the microphone, and I just felt like, it just felt so unnatural to me. I tried so hard, but my hands were shaking.
Well, that's why you got to do it.
Slowly, just grabbing it.
Well, these are the things that you're going through now in your first 100 times. And did I send you some of those articles already? I'll send it. Buzz through them.
No, if you could, send them. I'll read every single one of them.
As soon as we hang up here, I'll do that to you. But just read them now, and then a year from now, read them again, because there's going to be things that you're not ready for now. Yeah. That's why I pass them out there. It's timed release. And it's like, and then 5 years from now, you're oh, geez, there's some stuff I didn't see in there, because you're looking for different things. Mm-hmm. So I poured my heart and soul into it. I'm thinking, okay, it's out there anyway. Why not pass it out into the universe? So it'll get some stuff in there. But again, I get it. It's your habit that you're doing it. Try to build good habits moving forward.
Yep.
And if nobody tells you what that is, you don't. Nobody told me, so that's why I took the mic out of the stand.
Yep.
I get it.
Cool.
Is that
Good
it?
to know.
I think we're good, guys.
We're
thank
good.
you. This is
Yeah,
a blast.
no.
You guys are awesome.
Yeah,
Thank you
so
very
much.
much, Dobie.
We'd love to have you on again sometime. If
Anytime. You tell me when. Plenty more to talk about.
All right,
Sounds
definitely.
good, brother. Thanks.
Thank you so much for your time.
See
We
you guys
appreciate
soon.
it.
But just remember that this is all a worthy step in the quest for laughs, everybody. Luckily for Wayne, he's great at slamming his ass shut and sweating, so he's going to have a great time in the next part of his comedy career for sure.